starting with Daniel chapter 3, verse 4. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews who have set the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of the gold you have set up. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to them, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us. And if he will deliver us from your majesty's hand, but even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will serve your God. We will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. My title is going to be Serve God Even If. We have to serve God by being obedient like the Hebrew boys. They knew that it was wrong to worship idols. And not only is that one of the commandments, it's the first commandment. And they chose to stay obedient no matter what was going to happen. And in verse 19, it says, he ordered the furnace heated 7 times higher than usual and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in the army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. But in verse 25, it says, he said, look at the 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the fourth looks like the Son of God. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were saved in the fires. They got out unharmed, but they were ready to stay obedient to God no matter what happened. So now I'm going to go to Acts 5, verse 12. The apostles performed many signs and wonders among the people, and all the believers used to meet together in Solomon's congregate. No one else dared to join them, even though they were highly regarded by the people. Nevertheless, more and more men and women believed in the Lord, and they were added to their number. As a result, people brought the sick into the streets and laid them on beds and mats so that at least Peter's shadow might fall on them. As they passed by, crowds gathered also from the towns around Jerusalem, bringing sick to those tormented by impure spirits, and all of them that were healed. Then the high priest and all his associates, who were members of the party of the Sadducees, were filled with jealousy. They arrested the apostles and put them in the public jail. So the apostles, they were out doing their assignment. They were doing what they were assigned to do by God. But because they chose to do this, they were thrown in jail. So we have to serve God by being obedient and being useful. We have to do the assignment that's put before us, like the disciples did. And we don't want to be, and in the last day, many will say to him, haven't we done all these wonderful works in our name? And he'll say, I never knew you. We don't want to be like them people. We want God to know who we are, and we have to do what's assigned to us. And it says, going back to verse 13, no one else dared to join them. We got to dare to do what the disciples did and do our assignment. I'm sure many of you have seen the Christmas story where the kid gets dared to stick his tongue on the pole. And at first he's not going to do it, but then they triple dog dare him. So he has to do it. So we got to treat it as a triple dog dare, and we got to do our assignment that's set before us. Going to Acts 12, which seems like our church's favorite chapter of the whole Bible. Acts 12, verse 5, Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto God for him. And when Herod would have brought him forth the same night, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers bound with 2 chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison. Now we know Peter, he got out because the church prayed for him, But what does it say in the beginning of that chapter? Now, verse 1, it says, Now about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church, and he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. So James didn't make it out. And it says that Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church. So many of the church were being persecuted. And the different translations say different things. One says Herod stretched out his hands to harass some in the church. Another says he began to persecute some believers. Another says he laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. And if you look at the Strong's definition, it says to oppress, afflict, and harm. So either way, it wasn't looking good for whatever Herod was doing to, the church. Um, and going back to, the earlier from the other verse in 12, no one dared to join the disciples. When the people who did dare to join them, this is what was happening to them. But we have to still serve God. We have to, by being obedient, by being useful, and being ready to suffer. And a few years ago, there was a cake maker that refused to make a cake for a LGBTQ couple, and because of that, they brought him to court, and he lost the case and he lost his business. So sometimes it's not going to be a Peter getting out of prison ending. It might be something like that, but whatever it is, we have to be ready, even if, and serve God. And next, I'm gonna go to. I'm gonna go back to Acts 5. So after the disciples, after the disciples did get out of jail, after they were thrown in there because they were preaching and doing miracles, after they got out, they went back to preaching and doing miracles. It says in verse 25, Then came one and told them, saying, Behold, the men whom ye were put in prison are standing in the temple and teaching the people. And to him they agreed, and verse 40, and then to them they agreed, and when they had called the apostles and beaten them, they commanded that they should not speak in the name of Jesus. So they just got out of prison. They went back to preaching, and now they're getting beaten. So it's like no wonder why no one dared to join them. In verse 41, it says, And they departed from the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were accounted worthy to suffer shame for his name. And daily in the temple and every house they ceased not to teach and preach Jesus Christ. So they were preaching and doing miracles, and they got thrown in prison. They went back to doing the same thing they were doing, got beaten, and they did it again. So so we have to be obedient, be useful, and be ready to suffer, and then be ready to get back up again. Going back to verse 13 again, no one else dared to join them. We have to dare to be like the apostles. So turn to someone and say, serve God even if. I triple dog dare you.